So, because of the death slash murder of Janiah McMillan in the Lincoln Village Kids Jail in Elizabethtown, Hardin County, I wanted to get to know a little bit of the history. Okay, so Hardin was an Indian killer, and then it seems like Andrew Hines, the one who founded Elizabethtown, lived on a plantation. He built the house with a guy named Elisha Freeman, and Freeman is usually a black person. It was a black person named Freeman who was with John Hardin when he got killed. So here's something that happened in Elizabethtown, 1931, so less than 100 years ago. There are 3 black folks who were tried for murder in Elizabethtown, April 28th, 1931, in a courtroom filled as usual with hostile whites. They had been arrested for the murder of a white farmer during a crime spree through Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. Now, this just goes to show the white people being in the courtroom is used to intimidate. The Mississippi Plan used intimidation and violence at the polls because it works. Now, blacks on trial for the murder of whites still had to be escorted by heavily armed guardsmen. Whites still flocked to see the event, and let it be known that if the jury did not have the stomach to fully punish the black accused, they would. So, they would take matters into their own hand, and then they would kill them. They would hang them. This is the Ku Klux Klan. This is Christianity. This is white supremacy. And these are mental illnesses which still exist today. So, 3 blacks were tried for murder in Elizabethtown. They had been arrested for the murder of a white farmer and a crime spree. So that's, those are bad things that happen. But they're the accused. Much of the mob's anger was directed towards one of the defendants, Walter Dewberry, because he chose C. Eubank Tucker, a black civil rights activist from Louisville, as counsel instead of one of the white attorneys appointed by the court. So instead of one of the white people by the court who they knew, and they knew that the guy could just throw him under the fucking bus, he gets this, an honest man. That was the point that white people were pissed off, because C. Eubank Tucker was an honest man. During the court's recess for lunch, Tucker was physically attacked by a group of white men. One of the assailants struck him repeatedly in the face with brass knuckles. Several guardsmen took Tucker to a doctor and then back to the courthouse and remained with him for the duration of the trial. Upon returning to court, Tucker filed a change of venue upon the grounds that no justice could be given in a court where the state militia was needed to guard the prisoners and where the defense attorney narrowly escaped death at the hands of an angry mob. He's absolutely right. So if we're to assume that anybody that's accused is guilty, just look at the case, C. Eubank Tucker. What did C. Eubank Tucker, what was his crime for the white supremacist KKK in Elizabethtown? What was C. Eubank Tucker's crime? He was an honest man, civil rights lawyer. He was black. He was from Louisville, and he might actually get justice. He might actually get the truth, actually give them a fighting defense to where these white, bloodthirsty white supremacists couldn't kill and murder these 3 accused blacks. 1931, April 28th. That was his crime. So the judge ignored the request, ordered the trial to continue. The all-white jury found Tucker's client guilty of murder after deliberating for 13 minutes. Charles Rogers, Walter Holmes also received the death penalty. As became routine, appeals and delays lasted for almost a year, but eventually the 3 men died in the electric chair. Rogers and Holmes on April 29th, 1932, and Dewberry almost 18 months later on November 10th, 1933. Given how easily many blacks were convicted of murder and sentenced to death or to long prison terms, it's surprising to discover that on several occasions they succeeded in challenging their convictions or having their sentences commuted by the governor. So the comparison, when I think of Janiah McMillan's case, look at all the adults who failed her. Her mother failed her. Isaiah, that was another thing I wanted to mention. Isaiah was the man's name. The friend's mother who was holding her down for about 10 minutes. So who struck her, who held her down, and then Just out of nowhere, her heart gives out when, after all this shit happens, all this trauma, all this commotion, all this violence, all this oppression. The oppressors did not give a shit. The oppressors, the arresting officer, the caseworker, and they never mentioned Mary Hurst, if the caseworker was even told about it. The judge, they contacted a judge that late at night, and what was it for? She was defending herself against a drunk, angry mother. She was the victim, but instead of saying, hey, victim, and then she gets into jail, and the jailers are like, well, you wouldn't be here if, you were innocent. No, that's not how the system works. You're innocent until proven guilty, but sometimes because you're black, because you're young, you're powerless, you're thrown in jail just for the fuck of it because nobody wants to do anything with you. So I feel for her mother. I think her mother was totally in the wrong, but I feel for her mother in some sense because she was saying, I can't handle you, so I'm going to give you to the system. But it's like, being a black woman, do you not understand that the system can just kill you? I mean, I'm cautious, what about the system? And so it's like, you didn't know that? You thought that you were just going to call the law and then everything would be A-okay? Because, I mean, everybody in Janiah's case failed her. Every adult. From the mother to the arresting officer to the judge to the caseworker. They didn't know she was in Maryhurst, Home of the Innocents. If she had been getting treated and they had been into counseling and they knew that there is this history, this tumultuous relationship between the two, why would they not put her back where, she was safe, where she had a sanctuary, where she was A-okay? But instead of doing that, the arresting officer, the judge, the caseworker, they send her to Lincoln Village, and then Lincoln Village, the jailer's there. Here's one article here about the case. So they said that the reason why the two people are getting indicted, Reginald Wyndham and Victor Holt, is because they're black. So there were black inmates, and they were the ones that were supposed to do the bed checks, but essentially their lawyer is saying they're being thrown under the bus when the white man supervisor who was on deck that night is getting away with it. And so this is something that comes from the executive branch. The main guy, the director, was fired. Bob Hader is fired. And then you had three people two of these guys got indictments for second-degree official misconduct. And then the third one ate the breakfast, so he got fired. Christopher Johnson. So Reginald Wyndham, Victor Holt, and Christopher Johnson. So they were falsifying logs, they were lying and saying that they did bed checks when they actually didn't, and yet they were saying that they were following the supervisor's orders, and the supervisor is still in the jail. So there might be something to it, but this is WDRB. They didn't print who the supervisor was. So fascinating. If a police officer accuses you of a crime, if your mother calls, the police and accuses you of a crime, and then a police officer comes, you're allowed to get beat up, thrown in jail, possibly killed. But if somebody says, well, my daughter's dead, I think you all might have done something, to her, well, no, we're not going to print his name. We're going to protect the supervisor who's on deck. So, I think this is just to stir the pot to say, well, look, these are black guys, state workers, who's getting screwed over. And it could be possible that they're getting screwed over. If they were white, then the thin blue line would apply to them. But because they're not, then that means it's like, well, I'm not going to, allow you to represent me, so you are accountable for your own crimes. That just means that they're going to be held accountable for their own crimes. Doesn't mean that, they're getting arrested because they're black. Their privilege isn't extended to them. That would be extended to, say, if the jailers were white. So that isn't the only crime that's happened in Elizabethtown in Hardin County. 1903. Negro lynched, murdered deputy marshal. Need you say more? I mean, what more do you need, right? Black man had killed a deputy marshal and probably a white guy, so hang him. 1903, Elizabethtown, Kentucky, a Negro, Harlan Buckles, murdered Deputy Marshal Reed. A mob of Americans, right? Don't that sound good? Not white supremacists, not Ku Klux Klan, but Americans. As opposed to a black person, like a black person is an American. If you're born on this soil, that makes you an American. Americans seized the Negro murderer from the county jail and then lynched him. And 1903, the times in which they lived, an attack by a Negro on one was an attack on all. Negro almost lynched for busting 2x4. Okay, so this is Harlan Buckles. Now, this is Racial Violence in Kentucky by George C. Wright. One of the best books I've ever read in my life. I still get something out of it. Several lynchings resulted after whites expressed disapproval over the sentences given blacks for murdering whites. In Elizabethtown, again, 1902, Harlan Buckles was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Deputy Marshal Robert Reed. The cause of the murder is unknown, but for Buckles to be given life in prison instead of death for the murder of a law officer suggests that some aspects of self-defense might have been involved. So the jury says life in prison, not murder. But what do the white supremacists, the Christian white supremacists, racist, fucking Elizabethtonians, Kentuckians, Americans, what do they want to go do? Well, here's what they decided to do. Oh, you're going to be given life in prison? Oh, no, you're not. So, the cause of the murder is unknown, but for Buckles to be given a life in prison instead of death for the murder of a law officer suggests that some aspects of self-defense may have been involved. Nevertheless, the day after his sentencing, but before he had been removed to the state prison, Harlan Buckles was taken from jail by 75 men and hanged. In London, several years later, Virgil Bowers was taken from the jail, lynched after he had been sentenced to life for the murder of a white man. Circuit Judge H.C. Faulkner of Laurel County was outraged by the Mobs Act and called for a thorough investigation of the incident. In a very moving speech to the grand jury, the judge said the law had been served in this case by sentencing Bowers to prison. And you can imagine my horror when, upon being awakened at midnight, I found that citizens had taken this man from the jail and hung him almost under the shadow of your courthouse. Already there are those in your midst who are apologists for the members of this mob. No sophistry can whitewash their character. They will live and die as common murderers and fill a murderer's grave. They are infinitely worse than Virgil Bowers. They took an unarmed man from his cell in the jail and from the officers of the law and killed him, murdered him in cold blood, and sneaked away to their homes. This is a circuit judge, H.C. Faulkner of Laurel County. All right, H.C. Faulkner. There is some hope because you got H.C. Faulkners around. Now, you have the Civil War, right? 1861 to 1865. Lincoln gets shot. Andrew Jackson, the racist, is now president. And the South is being under martial law by the federal troops. Reconstruction ends 1877, and it wasn't until after slavery was illegal when lynchings began, because when slavery was the law of the land, then that meant that you didn't have to lynch black people because the system would put black people, in this racial dictatorship, the second run, treat them as second-class citizens. So, yesterday morning at Elizabethtown, Kentucky, a Negro named Jim Board, who was disorderly, having threatened to shoot somebody, was arrested by William Warreii, Warreii, who was a town marshal. The Negro resisted the officer, endeavored to escape. He started the run, but William, it could be Warren, instead of two eyes, it was an N that got changed to two eyes. He started to run, and the marshal ordered him to halt. He refused to stop, so the marshal fired at him, the shot taking effect in the back of the head, killing him instantly. So, Jim Board, this is from May 15th, 1870, Daily Alta, California newspaper. They are saying that Jim Board was shot in the back of the head. And for what? Oh, because he was being disorderly. Shooting someone in the back of the head's not disorderly. That's totally orderly. That's acceptable behavior, but he was being disorderly. So what? He was talking too loudly? He looked someone in the eyes? I've seen them get lynched just for general purposes. Why? General purposes. I've seen or heard about one getting lynched about contemplating an attack. Oh, he was thinking about attacking my wife. I saw it on his face. He had that look on his face. That's the crime. He thought about, you're getting killed by your thoughts. Let's assume it's true. But that's a big assumption. Why the fuck would you assume that? Oh, I can tell by his face he went, what? Just because you're like disappointed or mad at a decision or some shit? And if you're oppressed, then someone's enjoying your oppression? I mean, fuck. That's Jim Board. When I read this, a white supremacist would read this and be like, well, you know, he resisted, he ran, clearly he must be guilty. No, the story, a lot of people want to say two sides to every story. I think there's infinite sides. But if there's two sides, Jim Board doesn't even get his side out there. What the fuck was he doing? What the fuck is his, is his perspective? We don't even get to hear Jim Board because Jim Board now has a bullet in the back of his head. Shot in the back of his head. Just like they did to Tristan Cole in Warren County. Shot him in the back. Like a coward. So, Jim Board, disorderly, having threatened to shoot somebody. Yeah, bullshit. What's the difference between a threat and somebody who actually fucking does it? Clearly, all these white supremacists were just itching for a fucking reason. Couldn't wait to kill Jim Board for any fucking thing. Disorderly. Get the fuck out of here. Disorderly conduct is like the smallest, dumbest shit that you could put on somebody. It's when a cop is in your face yelling at you and you say, hey, get the fuck out of my face. Disorderly. Wait, him yelling in my face wasn't disorderly conduct? Too many times the officers of the law have, the absolute power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, they abuse their authority. So, big fucking shocker there. Here's another one. This is the last one that I was able to find. May 9th, 1884. A Negro lynched in Kentucky, Elizabethtown. May 9th at 1 o'clock this morning. 16 masked and armed men rode into town, hitched their horses in the courthouse yard, and proceeded to the jail. The jailer, Mr. Joseph Sweets, bearing a noise at the jail, went to the door. Hearing a noise at the jail, went to the door when a crowd rushed towards him, discharging their firearms promiscuously. Some of the balls breaking windows in the jail and others entering the jailer's house. In an instant, the jailer was seized by the collar and pistols were thrusted into his face with the command, give us the keys or Miles Petty. Then a shotgun was discharged, which the jailer thinks was aimed at him. The jailer informed them that the keys were in the house when they were said, get them quick, and dragged the jailer in the doors. Mrs. Sweets, the jailer's wife, handed them the keys. In 5 seconds, they were unlocking the doors, but being unable to unlock one of the inner doors, had the jailer brought at the pistol's mouth. But just as he arrived, they succeeded in opening the door and seizing on their victim. They put him on horseback and hurried him away. This morning, Miles Petty's body was found swinging to a limb by the side of the Nashville Pike, about 3/4 of a mile from town, with a card pinned on his coat, on which was written a warning that the body was not to be cut down before 9 o'clock. The news spread rapidly. In a few minutes, the road was filled with people going to the scene. The body was cut down by B.R. Young, the coroner, and after the inquest was brought back for burial. So who's Miles Petty? Who is Miles Petty? We just shot Jim Board for disorderly conduct. Oh, he threatened to kill somebody. Did he really? That sounds like bullshit. They could drop a gun on him and be like, oh, he raised a gun at me. I had to defend me. My life was in danger. My life was in danger. Miles Petty was a Negro who, some time ago, committed a brutal crime upon the person of Miss Cora Vernert. C-O-R-A-V-A-N-N-E-R-T. Cora Vernert. The way that they said that. A brutal crime upon the person of Miss Cora Vernert, a young lady living somewhere, something or another. Let's see. Miles Petty lynched in Hardin County, May 1884. Jim Board was in 1870, so this would have been after Reconstruction had failed. After Reconstruction had failed, the people, white supremacists, the Christian KKK, got to keep on murdering black people with glee, like a sadistic psychopath, like a serial killer, like a Donald Harvey, one of the worst serial killers ever to have ever existed, and he came out of Kentucky. So, let's see, there is the second part to this. And they went ahead and explained how this unlawful band goes into the jail before there's a trial, before there's a conviction, and goes ahead and convicts him and kills him. 75 people. That's what the KKK would do. Go break down the jail, scare the jailer, get the keys, and then get Miles Petty and kill him. So things have changed. Instead of outright killing black men for dumb, stupid, trivial reasons. Now the police officers and the system has hired a couple black jailers, right? So they could be institutional racist, but the white police officer can go ahead and say, well, I'm gonna take it to the caseworker, the judge. The judge, the arresting officer, they are the racist, right? You're going to go to jail just for the fuck of it. Well, shouldn't I go to Maryhurst? No, we're going to go ahead and send you to prison, to jail. I mean, you're 16 years old and you're fighting with your drunk mother. Clearly, you deserve jail time. You need to be scared. This is what's going to happen to you. Jail sucks, right? It's not a Holiday Inn. We don't treat you like human beings around here. This is America, where we put more people in jail than everybody in the world. We don't do like Norway. We're not trying for you to be rehabilitated so you can come back out and be a decent person. No. We're not trying to do that shit. So, Miles Petty was a Negro who, for some time, committed a brutal crime upon the person of Miss Cora Vennert, a young lady living in the south end of this county, and placed in jail. He was to have been taken back to Sonora where his examining trial was to be held. So, could there be an argument that Janiyah had horribly assaulted the person of Michelle McMillan? That's the same shit. The way that they fucking worded it just makes me think, bullshit. So, he was to have been taken back to Sonora where his examining trial was to be held. When the officers were warned that a mob had been organizing to hang him, they went down on the train alone, leaving the prisoner here. When it was boarded by a mob, which began a search for the prisoner, but not finding him, made their oaths to come to town for him. The officers returned and had the prisoner hurried through the country to meet the train to Louisville, where the prisoner was sent for safekeeping. The mob came in town that night and followed the officers so close that they were compelled to take to the woods until they reached Brandenburg, where they crossed over into Indiana and reached Louisville in safety. The grand jury returned an indictment against the Negro. When he was brought out here, his case was set for trial, and the prisoner returned to Louisville, where he was brought back here secretly night before last for trial. But few people here knew he was in jail at this place until this morning, when they learned that he had been hung. So, they tried to give him a fair trial. They tried to give him a fair hearing. He got an indictment from the grand jury. An indictment just means that there was enough probable cause to think that you might have committed a felony. The grand jury indictment is to prevent frivolous felony cases from going through. So, did he do it? No, he didn't have a trial. He never got his actual trial. He got an indictment, and there's the saying you can indict a ham sandwich. So apparently some grand jury in Louisville had thought that he may have done something, a crime which he needed to stand in jail for. Now compare that with the police officer in Boone County who had shot Samantha Ramsey, right? What happened to him? He murdered a person in cold blood, shot her through the chest. Grand jury failed to indict. There was a dead body, a dead white woman, right? You want to talk about the brutal deprivations of Miss Cora Vennert. Oh, Miss Cora Vennert was hurt by this black man. A lot of times, even with the cases where they say that the black man had raped the white woman had freely chose to have sex with the black man and was caught by her daddy, and then she pretended, oh, Daddy, I'll never do that. I was raped. I swear to God, I was raped. Watch that one movie. I know The Watchmen. They changed it or whatever, but to the Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird. Right? That white woman gets on there, and basically she's getting beat up and pounded and raped by her dad, and yet she puts it on the black man, and she's like, no, I'm not going to say no more. Yeah, because you're lying through your teeth. And your lies are going to get this black man killed. And it did. So, I don't know what happened to Cora Vennert, but a white supremacist was like, oh, well, he did something to a white woman. To hell with him. I want to know the other side of the story. What would Miles Petty say? Would he defend himself? Would he give any, defense to himself? Now, I was just in court in the federal county in Gene Snyder for the LMPD abuse case. And as soon as I said that, I was a perfect victim because all I was doing was walking to the store. I wasn't running. I had nothing in my hands. I wasn't looking all menacing. I was crossing peacefully in an intersection like you're supposed to do legally. And then they come out undercover so you couldn't tell. Just white car, dude with the flannel and a baseball hat. Cussing, get the fuck out of the road. They're spinning, doing donuts in the middle of the road. They jump out in the middle of an intersection. They're like, what? Has nothing to do with, anything. But I said that I was a perfect victim. And the guy was like, no, I heard that you did this. Well, I mean, are you listening to me? Or have you already made up your fucking mind? You've already made up your fucking mind. I meant to stand your ground. He was like, don't even bring Trayvon Martin up to me. If Trayvon Martin was a police officer, would you still think the same thing? If Trayvon Martin was walking home and he got stalked and followed and then shot and murdered and he was a police officer, do you now all of a sudden, you think that's acceptable? All I did was reverse the roles. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and that's exactly how you can tell something is just or not. So Trayvon Martin was a police officer. I bet you more people would be like, well, that's bullshit. He was being stalked. He was being followed. The Zimmerman walks up to him and shoots him. So Miles Petty, R.I.P. Miles Petty, R.I.P. to all these folks. Cora Vernert, I don't think it did. If she had been attacked, had been shot, had been killed, had been raped, they would have said that. But because they said a brutal crime upon the person, that just sounds like horseshit. This sounds like absolute bullshit. So, R.I.P. Miles Petty. R.I.P. everybody, really, that I just mentioned. Jim Board, Miles Petty, and the other ones. Especially that lawyer. What the fuck? You guys are brass knuckles beating up a lawyer with brass knuckles. That's not justice. That's not fairness. That's a black man who is a lawyer, so fuck him. Fuck a black man trying to be respectable, like the president, right? Oh, he must have a birth certificate. He's not a real president. He's not from this country. Get the fuck out of here, you white supremacist, fucking racist pieces of shit. Facts about Janiah McMillan's life. Janiah, she had been in group homes since she was 14, the same time her father died. So it looked like her father had been taking care of her for 14 years. And, the father actually loved her, protected her, and then, kept her out of harm's way. Then her father dies. She has to go with her mother. Mother's drunk, doesn't want a child at the time, isn't ready for it, so keeps putting her in group homes, trying to do counseling this, counseling that. And they said group homes. So it sounds like she could have been in both Home of the Innocents and at Maryhurst, both of them. And she was 16. So just a year and a half of being, switched around these different homes. This is tragic. She's orphaned, essentially. She's an orphan, so she needs our love and support as a society, but our society doesn't love and support. They only do what the oppressors want. How many times does a police officer go up to a homeless person and say, what's your name? What's your, whatever, specs? what's your name? What's your information? What's your situation? You need a home? Okay, I'm going to find you a home. They don't do that. They say, hey, what did you do? Did you hurt somebody? Did you hit somebody? Come on, do something. I want to hit you and beat you up. I want to. God, I can't wait. I get such a thrill. I get such a sadistic thrill at hurting other people. Please tell me that you done something wrong. Please tell me. Let me I'm going to run your name and see if you got a warrant. Oh, shit, you don't have a warrant. You got any drugs on you? Got some guns? Let me see. Empty your pocket. Do this, do that. Oh, my God, get the fuck out of here. That's definitely isn't justice. And that's not fucking right. So, she's in group homes since she was 14. All these oppressors couldn't help her, show her compassion and love. Actually, do what the system should have done and put her at Maryhurst. They couldn't have done that, so they put her in juvie, in a fucking jail where the guys are sitting there doing these Aikido, fucking martial arts techniques on her. 5 of the people, including that supervisor that still has a job there, is on top of her. That video hasn't been released. So the video that came out, there is still missing footage of when they put that Aikido hold on her. And they held her down for 4.5 minutes, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. And then she winds up dying 28 hours later in her sleep. Supposedly no toxicology, no drugs are in her system. She wasn't suicidal. She goes to fucking jail and dies. She just fucking dies. This shit happens, Sandra Bland. This happens a lot. Bob Hader was fired in February after Janiah's detention center death. Matt Bevin ousted the Department of Juvenile Justice Commissioner Bob Hader. So, but, let's see. There's 380 youths. So the Kentucky Department of Juvenile Justice operates 28 residential programs statewide. So Bob Hader is the director, so I'm sure he gets paid a pretty fucking penny. But they're running 28 residential programs statewide. 28 and 380. So what is there? 20 kids per building, including detention centers, development centers, and group homes that house about 380 youths. And that's it. That's actually remarkable that that's all we got of orphans is 380 orphans. And Janiyah was one, even though her mother was alive and well. So we don't charge the goons who did the martial arts to her. That wasn't done nothing. Nobody was done anything to her. Isaiah, the mother's friend, or the mother, hasn't been charged. The arresting officer, the caseworker who dropped the fucking ball, the judge who gave the officer permission to be a oppressive psycho. And all their names are, off the books. Nobody even mentions their names, right? Because they're white and they're part of the system. So in the juvenile jail, after getting roughed up by the staff, she didn't wake up. Her condition was being black and in police custody. Dying from this condition is all too common. The month Sandra Bland died of the same condition in a Texas jail, 5 other black women also died in police custody. The surveillance video is missing key footage. The official story is another official lie. At the time of Janiyah's arrest, she was visiting her mother but living full-time at a child welfare agency. Due to unhealthy living conditions, quiet Janiyah had not lived with her mom since July 2015. July 2015. I mean, this is December, right? Or January. So 6 months after she had lived with her mom, she's visiting with her mom. The 911 call made after the altercation with Janiyah with her mother was heartbreaking to listen to. Janiyah's painful cries in the background saying, no, I didn't. She's being pinned down by Isaiah, her mother's male friend, and her mother is yelling at her, calling her a whore and dumb bitch and all this other shit. From this recording, it's obvious they have a troubled relationship, which leads to the obvious question of why was Janiyah not just taken back to the child welfare agency? Why wasn't she just taken back to her home? She had no home. She had no peaceful sanctuary. Where was she supposed to go? Her mother's house? Her mother was a dick. Let the authorities deal with it. They fucked up. A lot of adults failed Janiyah. Maryhurst is Kentucky's oldest child welfare facility. It provides housing, counseling, and other therapeutic treatment for children. The residency had previously provided Janiyah and her mother with ongoing therapy sessions, so why was Janiyah not taken back to the safe haven with professionals who specialize in managing these types of occurrences? Why was she taken over 70 miles away to a child jail to be assaulted and then left in solitary confinement with minimal oversight from a man with a history of violence and neglect? Bob Hader received notice of his firing on February 5th, the same day the detention center staffer Reginald Windham, Windham, was terminated for failing to make required bed checks every 15 minutes and for falsifying records related to those checks. According to documents obtained by 48 Hours Crime Cider, I conducted most of the 15-minute periods checks on McMillan. Windham wrote in his report, youth appeared asleep through the night. I made my last check at 5:45 hour while Mr. Holt was on duty, first shift supervisor. We was both in intake. Everything appeared normal. Kimmin said internal investigators found that dozens of checks were missed that night. The longest voided time when she was not checked was 1 hour and 53 minutes. Kinman said and that there were 2 other gaps of more than an hour. The bed check is one thing. If she's suicide or something, yeah, you need to monitor them. But if they're oppressors and they want to, I'm the boss, you're the bitch, I'm the master, you're the slave, shut the fuck up, do as the fuck as I tell you. I don't see them giving her food. I don't see her waking her up to get a phone call. I don't see her doing any fucking thing. Just being shitty to her. Just being absolutely shitty to her. She goes through this traumatic fucking experience with her fucking mother, don't fucking love her, is attacking her, letting her boyfriend put her hands on her, doesn't give a shit about that. And then she goes, is going for a ride in a police cruiser with a fucking guy that she doesn't know. And then she gets into this jail. She gets beat up when she's in the jail. She gets a keto hold that 5 people put on her for 4 minutes, 15 seconds. And then this is after she just, hey, take off your damn hoodie. Listen here, slave, you inferior fucking slave, you inferior fucking nobody. Sometimes just your tone, hey, we need to do this, book you, photograph you and do that. Can you take off your hood? You know what I mean? Like, did they try it that way? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, but a lot of times they don't. They go straight for, if you're a hammer, then all the problems look like a nail. So if you're a violent oppressor with a badge, then you can't wait to use that fucking violence against somebody because it's your adrenaline rush. You just feel so fucking, oh my God, I'm so fucking, I'm so amped about this shit. So, R.I.P. Janiyah. I want to, I did an hour video. Now I'm doing another sort of 30, 40 minutes video. There's a lot to this case, and I'd like to put it on the jailers. Here's what I think. Here's my conclusion. That ultimately the legal system is a contentious place. So what I think for Michelle McMillan, I think she needs to go after the jail with all that she has. Get that surveillance, get that Aikido hold, put it out to the public, keep on making this an issue. They protested at the Hardin County Jail. A lot of black folks, I don't know if it was her mother or whatnot, but that's there's a lot of black folks that are actually, pissed off about this. This is bullshit. She was in your custody, now she's dead, and now we're supposed to believe that it was just, she had a rare fucking heart condition. Oh, that's fucking convenient. Fucking convenient. Now she's got a rare heart condition. So I think there's an institution here. Kentucky's #1 for the most fastest growing private prisons. We got private prisons growing up all over the place. Well, they need customers. They need people in their beds. That's how they make money. You got jailers, such as the one in Breckinridge County, that says that it's run like a business. So you got all these empty beds. Well, you need to fill those beds up because that's the only way you're going to meet your bottom line. It's the only way you're going to pay all your staff. So even if it means criminalizing people that don't need to be criminals, fuck it. Who cares? You're trying to make money here. And so a profit motive? Are we going to put profit motive? Jails have a profit motive now. That's, if they have a profit motive, they're not going to give you the medicine, they're not going to give you the care, they're not going to give you the food that you need. They're going to, have minimum wage employees that aren't trained to do jack shit. They're looking for profits. They're looking to make as much money. They're not trying to rehabilitate so they actually go out into the community. They're the boss, you're the bitches, and if they're stupid, that's easy to understand. I'm in charge, you're not, fuck you. Get out here, do this, go over there, go there, do this, do that. How about you kiss my ass? Suck my dick. You give me an order? Fuck you. Go fuck your mother. How about that, piece of shit? You don't like when I say that? That's the voice of resistance. Your ego is so fucking wound up. I really wasn't even talking about you. Just in general. But you can't even fucking hear that. So what I think that should happen, because it's actually hard for me to determine what caused her to die. That she had a heart murmur, a rare heart condition, I call bullshit on that. I call bullshit on that. So, I think the heartbreak, the emotional, the traumatic, the physical, all those things are in play. Whether it's by the jailers who put the Aikido hold, the martial arts hold on her for 4.5 minutes, whether it's Isaiah who was holding her down for 10 minutes, whether it was her mother or the arresting officer which put their hands on her, whether it was the culmination of all of them. Society doesn't care about Janiyah. The mother doesn't give a shit, the cop doesn't, the judge, the caseworker, the jailers. And the jailers are black men, so you would think that if there's, for a black woman, if there's any saving grace, maybe it would be a black man. But no, we're professional here, so shut your damn mouth. We're not going to allow our humanity to get in the way of our business. So, there's more people that have died. So I'm going to carry on to the next one. But R.I.P. Janiyah. R.I.P. Janiyah McMillan. I hope that there's a court case and the mother goes after, or the estate of Janiyah goes after the prison guards and the prison, the fucking jail, the arresting officer, the fucking judge, the caseworker, all these people. They go after every single fucking one of them, list them name by name by name. And then I don't hope, but I see that the jail will go after the mother and say, well, it was actually your fault. You're the one that did it because you were the one that had held her down. So if a hold kills her, how are you holding her? Were they just sitting on her? Were they just bear hugging her? Were they pushing her face into the couch? The Aikido, what the fuck did they do with Aikido? Aikido is if she just was non-compliant. So the Aikido would think if there was a person that was punching, then you could grab their arm and then pull them on, you use the momentum of the aggressor and you maintain your balance, but it has nothing to do with, hurting the victim or hurting the attacker. Even the attacker's, well-being is looked after. But if she just says, hey, take off your hoodie, and I'm not going to take my hoodie off, she's not the attacker. So there's no way Aikido could have been even fucking, that's a bullshit lie. That's them trying to say, hey, we know this phrase, and, you know, we use this tactic to try to minimize bullshit. Bullshit. If she just said, I'm not taking off my hoodie, then there was no Aikido fucking hold, because she's not the aggressor. She's not the perpetrator. The perpetrators, the aggressors, would be the ones that want to hold her down, take off her sweatshirt, and then take pictures of her. And it wasn't just the two black men and Christopher, whatever, that, you know, that's guilty here. It's not just three. So far, 3 people are taking a fall, but they're taking slap on the wrist fall. One's fired, 2 of them are indicted for second-degree official misconduct. The supervisor's still there, and there was probably about, you know, that's 4 people. There's 5, 6, 7. Their whole staff was there, and the whole staff, many people's hands was on Janiyah when she first went into the jail system. So perhaps she just gave up on life, and she gave up on life because nobody gave a damn about her, which would be on both the mother, the boyfriend, and the system, the cop, the judge, the caseworker, and most definitely the jailers, who showed no compassion whatsoever. Couldn't even wake her up to eat, couldn't even wake her up for a phone call. How many times do you get fucking phone calls in jail? That's a huge deal. It's a huge moment. Somebody wants to talk to me from the outside? Hell yeah. Hook me up. Oh, you're not going to respond to me? Then the hell with you. You're going to be stuck up like that? Then I'm not even going to know. You treat people the way they're supposed to be treated. And maybe she's acting like that because you guys have been assholes. Every one of y'all were assholes to her whole fucking life. R.I.P. Janiyah McMillan. R.I.P.